Hi everybody, and welcome to the third of my weekly online workshops. Right, I'm not doing a big picture for you to follow on this. All I've done today is I've done lots of little things. I've done half a dozen different types of sky and several simple ways of doing trees. It's basically just tips and tricks things, exercises for you to play around with while you're sitting at home looking for something to do. So there we go, have a go at various things like this and keep yourself busy. Okay, thanks. See you later. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is some skies. I've divided up a big piece of paper into 6, so I'm going to do half a dozen little skies, different moods. They're all very simple. All you need to do them bigger is use a bigger brush. I'm using my little 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch flat brush. If you want to do them bigger, use a bigger brush. It's exactly the same. Right, okay, put some water across that there. I'm not doing any land as such, I'm just doing skies. So there we go, that's a wetty bit. And this first one, I'm going to do an ordinary summery sky. So just ultramarine blue, nice and thick. At the top I've pre-wet the paper, you just seen me do it. Sorry about that. Some more water towards the bottom. Let that flow down. I'm going to tilt the page just a little bit, help it flow. That's not a perfect example of a graduated wash, but you get the idea. Just mop up along the bottom. Now, just wet water, because you very rarely get skies like that, but get some wet water into it, squidge it about, dry out the brush, wash out the brush, dry out the brush, and just with a damp brush make sure the brush is clean, or you end up just moving paint around. If you want to, you can put more of the dark in there, add some more little clouds towards the horizon, because that's usually where they come from. And there you go, summer sky. That will all dry a little bit later than it has been. Okay, so there you go, that's that one. Right, here we go with number 2. This one's going to be a stormy sky. Again, soggy it all in nice and wet before you start. The base of this one, I'm going to put in some yellow ochre. No, I'm not, I'm putting in raw sienna. I put that one in at the bottom, just splodge it across, and that will warm up the base of the sky. Let it run down a bit, sop up the bottom. Now the top, again ultramarine, but we'll put in a little dash of alizarin crimson and a touch of raw umber, and then make sure that's nice and thick. There we've got a much darker sky. Soften the bottom end. Now, with the mix we've just made, put a little bit of light red into it. So that's raw umber, alizarin, ultramarine, touch of light red to grey it all down. And then while that's still wet, we're just going to put in some thundery thunderclouds. What you can do if you want is just with your wet brush again, just take out some little bits at the top. And then, because that looks a bit sudden, you can dab in some more of the mix. Don't fiddle with it, let it settle. That just gives you a couple of lighter bits at the top of the cloud. They don't have to be at the top, they can be in the middle. Anywhere you like, they're your clouds. I just said don't fiddle, and what am I doing? I'm fiddling. You can always tilt the board and let stuff run down. There you go, that's that one. Two skies. Right, okay, sky number 3. I'll show you the whole lot when they're dry and you can see how much lighter they dry. This one, I'm going to change slightly. I'm going to get some lemon yellow and mix that in with a little bit of the yellow ochre, of the raw sienna. And again, at the bottom of the sky, I'm going to lay that in very wet. Now, if you notice that I'm using the paint to wet the paper with, I'm not putting water in first on this one. I'm going to put water in, but I'm going to put it in now. And I haven't dried the brush, cleaned the brush quite so much. So what I've got there is an upside down graduated wash, okay? Now that's wet, it's got the yellowy colour strong at the bottom, paler at the top. What I'm going to do now is get some light red, mix that up nice and thick, touch of alizarin, and what I'm going to do there is come down. Take that right to the bottom. Now got a sunshiny bit there for some reason. Okay, now ultramarine, mix up a really dark purple with the old ultramarine and the alizarin. Put in a touch of raw umber. And all I'm going to do with that is put in some clouds, very gently. If you want, you can add some direct crimsony ones straight into it. And there you've got a sunsetty sky. Again, it's all nice and wet. If you tilt the board, it runs even more. I think that must be a greasy finger mark. Now, time to come to one that we're all much more familiar with. Back to the old wetting the paper first. Now that's supposed to be clean water, but I obviously haven't washed the brush cleanly enough. But it doesn't matter with this one. Right, now that's soaking wet. You get your little bit of raw sienna. The bottom of your sky into there so it's nice and thin. Now, ultramarine again, and this time you add raw umber to it. Just raw umber, nothing else. Quite a bit of the old water. And that's a sort of dull grey colour. And then, while that's still wet, now I'm not leaving these completely joined up like I did in the blue sky. What I'm doing is leaving little bits in between. And then tilt that, let them join up. A little bit more dark at the top. And if you're going to take clouds out here, not that you particularly need to, but use the edge of the brush and take out thin, narrow bits of lighter cloud. So there you go. That's one we're all much more used to seeing. And again, that's an afternoon one because it's a little bit light in the bottom of it. Okay, so that is sky number 4. Okay, sky number 5. This time we're going to do the very early morning sky. I need to change my water, so I apologise if this water's getting a bit manky. There we go. Clean that up from the bottom, just mop it up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit of the alizarin crimson, a a lot of water. We've got a lovely little pinky colour, and this time taking it up from the bottom. The ultramarine blue. Don't need it particularly strong. And there we've got a more early morning sky. Pull out some clouds. Oh! If you thought that joggled, imagine what my head felt like. Okay, now because this is early morning, it's all just after dawn, we're going to mix up some of the alizarin with some of the bright yellow we used in the sunsetty one, and I'm just going to dab the bottom of those clouds, not the top, because the sun is down here now. If you want, you can put in a little bit of the yellow as well, just to warm that up even more. But there you go. That is a nice summer early morning sky. Okay, turn that one off. Right, okay, last but not least, we're coming to a slightly different summery sky. Again, put some water in, but I'm not being quite so tidy with this water, splodging it about all over. Technical term, splodge. And then, what I'm going to do now, get the ultramarine blue on its little own. Actually no, put tiny touch. Too much. Tiny touch of alizarin in it. What I'm going to do here now is, rather than do the graduated wash coming down, I'm going to do we've got much more wind-swept clouds there. And what I can do with a wet brush at the top is just very dry, damp brush. Just pull those into the sky where they're breaking up. If I want, at the bottom of that cloud, I can put a tiny touch of the grey colour that we mix up with raw umber and ultramarine, and just at the base of that cloud, or the centre, trickle in some depth to it, soften it with a damp brush, not a wet brush, damp brush, just to soften the edges, and let that run a little bit. So there we go, we've got 6 different skies. I'll pull them out if I can. No, I won't, I'll reset the video. Right, so there we go, that's the first sky we did, which is dried out quite a lot now, especially towards the bottom. You've got a deep blue sky at the top, and then underneath that we've taken out the white clouds and we've got a fluffy summer sky. The next one we did was a stormy sky. We started off with the raw umber base, then we fed in the darker blue, and then into that we mixed ultramarine blue, touch of raw umber and a touch of alizarin crimson, and made that dark cloud. And then I pulled out a little bit there with a damp brush, just to give it a bit of light at the top. The next one we did a sunsetty one, and I put in a very bright lemony yellow at the bottom and faded it out as we went up, then came down from the top with light red to make those lovely oranges, and then I put in the purpley colour again with ultramarine and alizarin, and then we've got those lovely dark clouds. Down here we've got the one that we're all most familiar with, looking out the window. That's the one that's out there now. I dropped in some very faint raw sienna towards the bottom, and the rest of it is burnt umber and ultramarine blue to make that rainy grey. And then I pulled out a couple of white bits of cloud going sideways with a brush this time. Done that one. And then we go morning sky. It's sort of an upside down sky. I started off with a very pale pink with alizarin crimson at the base, pulled that upwards, and then came down from the top with a paler mix of ultramarine, pulled out some clouds and put some pink along the bottom of them. Then we came down to a windy sky. Instead of coming down vertically with that one, I put the wash in horizontally, left a white bit in the middle for a blowny cloud. Then I put the grey bit, let that sort itself out, and the tops of the clouds I just pulled out to give a bit of a windswept appearance with a damp brush. So there you go, 6 completely different skies. Have a go at them, fiddle around, see what you can do, and there you go, have some fun. Right, back again. I've set up a big piece of paper this time, but I'm going to do lots of little pictures on it. We're going to be having a look, we've done skies, we're going to be having a look at some different easy ways to do trees. As you all know, there are 2 different types of trees grown in this country. There's deciduous and there's evergreen, and we'll start off looking at 2 basic evergreen types now to start with. First of all, I'm going to look at Fir Tree, which you get a lot of, and I'm not going to go into specific details of this particular tree or that particular make of fir tree, but it's just, they're basically two kinds. We get fir trees, we get pine trees, and they're basically very similar. The fir tree, we start off with a point at the top and we get fatter as we come down, and that is basically the trunk. It starts off, it's sort of Christmas tree shaped, and the branches start off at the bottom coming down and twisting up because they're heavy, and the top ones are dead duty. The branches at the top of a tree are always smaller and thinner than the branches at the bottom of a tree. Now that basically a fir tree in the nude. So all you need to do then, because they're always the same, we'll get a darky green colour, well, middle green colour, and I'm using Hooker's green, which never use on its own, and I'm going to mix some yellow ochre into it. And there is the lighty colour for the top end of these branches. Now I'll show you down the bottom when I get there. I'm not being particularly precious with these. We've got the shapes, now these sorts of trees don't actually have much in the way of foliage on the bit that joins up with the trunk. I'm putting odd bits for where they're coming across the front of the tree, and they go fairly low down, fir trees. Now that's them. Now I'm going to put some darker stuff in for the underneath, which is the same colour mixed with ultramarine blue and just a touch of Payne's grey, and then I've got a really dark colour, and I'm just doing the pointy bits at the end of these branches because they are dark green. They're always sort of bluey green actually, fir trees. And while we're on the subject of fir trees, I'll put a little bit of grass at the bottom. So there you go, that's a sort of very simple fir tree. If you want to do one in a distance, a very, very simple way of doing it, just clean my brush out. If you get some brown, dark, do these in the distance on a hillside or something like that. You just put in a stick. Clean your brush and use this dark greeny bluey colour, and all you need to do from a distance, for a distant one, is just squiggle. There you go, there's a distant one, and that's a close-up one. You can even get away with doing the same thing fairly close up. Right, okay, next one. We're going to do a Scots Pine. One of my favouriteest trees, Scots Pines. A little bit more kerfuffly. I'm going to use the yellow ochre. Scots Pines have this lovely orangey purpley bark which splits almost in diamond patterns. It's lovely. Okay, now Scots Pine coming down. Narrow at the top, fatter at the bottom. Now they tend to break up a little bit at the top. And they tend to just have foliage fairly high up, largely I think because they're used to living in tall forests, and they tend to have little broken bits coming off. Now I've done that, while the trunk's still wet, still using this little thin brush, I'm going to get some light red. And I'm just going to put some light red down that side. Just to blend in with that ochre colour. Now on the other side, I'm going to get some raw umber. Nice and thick on the brush, and on the other side where it's in shadow, and there, that's one of them in a nude. A little chance to dry a little bit. You see they're totally different shapes, but they're very obvious shapes, and it's just a shorthand way of doing them. I mean, more often than not you'll get loads of different trees all growing together. Right, okay. Yellow ochre. Mix in some Hooker's green. And we've got the bit where the light's hitting that tree. So, the top of it, they don't have a great deal of foliage. And it doesn't come very low down. So there we go, that's the light coloured bit on that. The same dark bluey green that I've used before. And all I'm going to do with this is, while that's still wet, hopefully just dab in the underneaths. And there you go, there's your pine tree. And one thing I will do while we're in the thing of wintry sort of trees, one thing which looks very effective, and I'll do it now because I'll be using these two colours. We do an ordinary, say like an oak tree or something like that, get a dark colour, and remember this is a wintry one. Same happens in summer, but it's more difficult to see. Okay, we do like almost like a dead oak tree, fairly thick at the bottom. Okay, so there's a sort of oaky tree shape, just to get some light into it. I'm cleaning out my brush, and I'll just suck out one side of the tree. So we've got a little bit of light shining on it. Now, what I'm going to do next is, with this light colour, green and yellow ochre, I'm going to get the brush fairly dry, and at the sides just going to pull that out like so. Into that, get your dark bluey green, and just and there you've got an ivy tree. So that is all fairly simple, straightforward. You can do other types of tree covered in ivy, it doesn't just happen on oaks. Do a long, thin elm tree or something. There you go. A little bit of wintry foliage. Which is just a dry brush. And then, again, light colour first. And then your dark bluey colour. Going down one side more than the other. And that's that. I'll show you how we're doing it bigger, if you like. I'll do a slightly bigger tree. take out one side to be light. Mop up the bottom. While I'm doing that, all you need to do for any of these is just to bed them in, get your lighty green and your darker green, and there they're sitting on the forest floor there. Waiting for that one to dry a bit. Should be okay. Light green. See, I'm using the corner of the big square brush this time. Into that ultramarine and hooker's green. Well, all I'm doing is just dropping it in. And letting it find its own way. So there we go. Right, that's various different types of wintry stuff at the top. Now what I'm going to do at the bottom here is I'm going to do several different tree skeletons, for want of a better word, and we'll show how they look. These are deciduous trees. Show how they look different times of the year. Now I'll start doing it with this brush. Okay, we'll do, this is raw umber, by the way, more or less on its own. Back to my little one, makes life easier. There's my raw umber, nice and dark. That one needs to go off the top of the page. It's not a particularly good tree thing, but it's only there to serve a purpose. Okay, damp brush, clean it out, squeeze it out, take out light down one side. Okay, dark colour, add some Payne's Grey into the raw umber, and down this side okay, so there's that. Now this is going to be, and I'll leave that as it is. I'll do a different shape of tree for the next one because I want them all to dry. Okay, here we go. This is the raw umber. I'll do these sort of, what are they, older buckthorns or whatever that you get growing along riverbanks. There we've got them. Now we'll do a different sort of a tree. Oh, I know. We'll do my favouriteest. You get a sort of grey colour. That's my sand colour mixed with a bit of Payne's Grey. You can actually do it with just Payne's Grey with a touch of raw umber in it, but what I'm going to do here now is now that's a grey colour. Get my wet brush, clean water, just down one side. It's very wet. Now, clean the brush, squeeze it out, and there is my favouriteest tree in the whole wide world, silver birchie. I love silver birches. Right, okay, we've got one like that, one like that. We'll do one with quite a lot of branches on for here. Dark two ways. You can start off thick at the bottom, pull it off, or if you want you can do it this way and start off thin at the top and then start pressing harder as you come down to make your thick trunk at the bottom. Now, every time a branch comes off a tree, the trunk gets thinner, or every time you've made your trunk get thinner, put a branch coming off. I've said my idea before. If you get a piece of string and you unravel the top and the bottom, then you get a big tufty bit at each end, but you still start off with the same amount of wood or the same amount of string. Right, here we are back again. These are all beautifully dry, so I shall carry on and do the last lap. Sorry about that, I got called away. So what we're going to do is, with these four down here, I'm going to make them the different seasons. We're going to start off with winter over here because it's the easiest. Basically, all we need here is a dry brush, small amount of greyish paint, and all we do is use the edge of the brush and the tooth of the paper we've just got twiggy bits on the outside, so there we go. This one we're going to go for spring. So I'm going to soggy up some lemon yellow. Add in a smidge of the hooker's green. Perhaps that's not a good idea. Lemon yellow, I've just discovered that mixing hooker's green and lemon yellow makes that totally unrealistic mint green, so we'll start again. Lemon yellow and a touch of ultramarine, and that's much more like it. And this is spring, same thing, slightly more paint, and there we have spring leaves. Just make a little bit darker by putting in a little bit more of the ultramarine, and there Add some shady bits. And there, spring sunshine. And like I did the top, this one, see a wintry base to it. That one, a greeny base. That one's already got a greeny base. But this one is going to be a summer tree. So, yellow ochre, touch of the hooker's green for your light colour. Now this is a silver birchy tree, so the leaves come down. And the light's on that side, so hooker's green, ultramarine, and we've got that sort of almost bluey colour. We'll just there we go. There's a summery tree. This one I'm going to do autumn, and then I'll do an ordinary summer tree further over. Right, okay. Autumn, again start off with the umber, with the yellow ochre. Into that, some light red. I'm not mixing this, I'm letting it mix itself on the paper. And now just for some shadowy bits, get some raw umber, mixing tiniest touch of Payne's grey, and then just here and there where the shadow's hitting it into that wet paint. And there you go, autumn tree. Winter, spring, summer, autumn. Now, because that's a very specific sort of type of tree, what I'm going to do for the last one is we'll do a generic summer tree. So just start with a tree shape right over here. Okay, that's that. While it's drying, I'll give it a little summer base. That one should have an autumny base. See how easy it is, just 2 bits of grass with a brush. Use the side of the brush. Now you're nearly dry. Again, yellow ochre. Quite thick. And there we go. Instead of putting in the light red, I'm going to use ultramarine blue, touch of the green, straight into that. It's a bit too blue. A little bit of hooker's green and yellow ochre. I'll just put some of that in. There we go. A summery tree. Now that's very basics. But we've got some idea of various trees. Okay, I'll be putting all this in the worksheet, and I'll try and find a way of keeping all these things together with a little note of how to do things. Okay, thanks for watching and have lots of jolly fun. Bye bye.